cemetery, not the old city cemetery. This story popped up about this very interestingly shaped little mausoleum, and we're gonna learn about the guy that is in there and how this whole structure came to be, and yeah, stay tuned. Calvin C. Phillips, early 19th century. He died in 1919. Now let's talk about how this structure, strange as it is, came to be. In 1877, this gentleman, Mr. Phillips, had designed a structure shaped just like this for the World's Fair Expo, and that was for Paris, France. So when it came to designing his own resting place, he chose to do it as an exact replica of what he had built for that expo in 1877. And of course he died in 1990. So he had built this, and he spent a lot of time in here after he built it, and at some point he hired someone to build him a cherry wood coffin, which he put in here. And after it was all completed, he decided he was going to come in here, locked himself in here, and died in the mausoleum that he built and the casket that he had built for him. And there he lies at rest to this day, since 1919. The story of Mr. Phillips and his very interesting mausoleum that he styled after a structure he built for the World's Fair Expo in Paris, France in 1877. And this, since 1919, has been not only his resting place, but the exact spot that he died in, his cherry wood coffin that he had built. Just a side note, you'll see over here that corner there, and I believe, yeah, those two corners there are still there, but on the other side those corners have been knocked off, and there they lie on the ground. So sometime in more recent history, I'm not going to say in the last few years, but in recent history, someone had broke in and actually stole his skull from his coffin. So they created this metal door and sealed it. It's almost riveted there to where it'd make it at least very difficult to break in. So this structure's been standing, and that's the history behind Mr. Phillips and his plan for his own demise. This at one time was standing, of course, and this toppled. I assume that it was standing. Those two pieces again were on these two corners. It's a shame that nobody would clean this up, because that would make an awesome looking structure if it were cleaned up. But I would assume that there was that over there, and that was the full piece right there that stood on this corner, and this must be part of the topple over here. I guess Mr. Phillips didn't have any family. I'd have to do some more research, but this again is an interesting story of Mr. Phillips building his own mausoleum, spending a lot of time in it after he built it, and then hiring someone to build him a cherry wood coffin. And once it was built and brought into this structure, he locked himself in and died in his own hand-built mausoleum, which is a exact replica of what he had built in 1877 for the World's Fair Expo in Paris, France.
And he did have family. He had some daughters and a wife, and they stayed in New York and did not come down here with him.
Okay, so he basically, even though he had family, he was alone. Kind of like me. There we go. Keep running across interesting stuff here in Tallahassee. So there you go. The Hodges family has a big stone here to cover the Hodges family. The inscription I find interesting, and I don't know where it comes from, but it says, "Until the day breaks and the shadows flee away." The most recent of these deaths occurred in 1978, and that was Margaret Wilson. Even though the family name here seems to be Hodges. Johnny, 1895, William, 1940, Eva, lived the closest to Margaret, 1939, then John in 1923, until the day breaks and the shadows. Well, folks, this has been an interesting little stopover here in Tallahassee with a couple of interesting stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed them, and we're gonna get back on the road.